My biggest fear would be when the first comes and I don't get the rent.
I found that my tenant had dumped concrete down my toilet.
Can you believe Fair Housing fined me $5,000 for that?
How do you onboard your tenants? What do you do?
I don't even know if I do it right.
If you're a landlord, don't just rent, rent perfect. The Rent Perfect podcast with property expert and private investigator, David Pickron.
Well, hello, Scott. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate that. Hey, Scott, real quick, what do you call a crocodile in a coat?
I got nothing for you.
An investigator.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, listen,
All right,
that's
all
dad
right.
joke 101. Okay, listen, my kids would be rolling their eyes right now. But welcome to the podcast today. We're actually going to talk about a little bit about private investigating today and kind of what we do. But I just want to welcome you, subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate the follows and the listens, the comments. It really helps us give us an idea of what people are needing out there. You know, often as a private investigator, I figure everybody's one. Right? I just figure everybody knows what I know.
Yeah, it's that curse of knowledge that sometimes we think everybody knows what I know,
Everybody
right?
knows what I know, and I get a phone call and someone asks me a question, and I'm like, wow, I thought everybody knew this, you know. And not that that people don't have the education out there. I'm not saying that it's a lot of people are just new into this, or a lot of people just need to be like told, like, yeah, you're right. You know, just a little bit of confidence builder, you know?
Right. And maybe they live in an area that doesn't have the same challenges that big metro areas have.
And I've got a friend I'm helping right now. We went in on an investment together and building a luxury duplex, and we have to. It's going to be furnished. It's going to be more of a short-term rental,
Right.
and he's calling me every second. What do you think we should do with the washer and dryer? Should it gas or electric? What? And he's so worried about it. And you know when I'm going to make those decisions?
About a week before.
About a week before we're ready to rent the thing, right? Because I'm not too concerned if the king size bed or queen size bed is the right fit for the room yet until I can go there, take measurements, and kind of lay it out. But it just makes me think that what do we know that we want to make sure that other people know, and so that's probably the reason that we do this podcast. But when people find out that we, Scotty, you and me, are private investigators, do you ever get anybody say, "Oh my gosh, you're a private investigator. What do you do?"
Yeah, the first thing they always ask me this is every time 100%. Have you looked at my background? Right?
Totally.
And I always tell them, no, I haven't looked at. I'm not a creepy guy.
Right.
I'm just an investigator.
So I'll be at places where people don't know me, and they're like, "What do you do for a living?" I'm a private investigator. And they're like, "Oh wow." And I always say, "And I'm here investigating you." Yeah. So, anyways, they're just kind of like,
we're not the telephoto lens,
right.
Sitting outside your house at midnight kind of investigators. Different.
So I do get that a lot. I was like, people think a private investigator is just someone who follows the cheating husband.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so they're always like, wow, you must have an interesting job.
Yeah. You had a lot of stories to tell.
Yeah. And, that's actually the part of the business that actually is the worst. You sit there for 5 hours. You can't fall asleep. You can't you can't do anything else but watch a front door for somebody to come out, get in their car. You get excited. They go to the grocery store, buy some bananas, and then go back home. And people think that's exciting.
Yeah.
So anyways, but as a private investigator, what is really the job of a private investigator? And private investigators were much more valuable back in the day before the internet. We would go to the courthouses. We would go get information that just wasn't available at everybody's fingertips. So the internet has almost created a whole population of private investigators, whether they're licensed or not, it's another story.
Amateur
right?
private investigators.
Exactly. Yeah. So here is really the definition of a private investigator: someone who gathers data and then renders a professional opinion. Okay, not we're going to get facts in there, but then with all the facts, we're then going to give you, with our experience, our opinion. It doesn't mean that it's right, wrong, and different, but it's kind of like, with all of the data that I see here, this is what I think is going on. So I follow a cheating husband, and he goes to a hotel room, and I see another girl go into the hotel room and come out, a little while later.
Yeah.
The fact is I know that there are two adults in a hotel room, but my professional opinion could be you have a husband that's having an affair on you, right? So I'm taking this data, and then I'm performing a professional opinion. We do that in insurance fraud. We're out there taking pictures of a guy, climbing a ladder, working on his roof, and yet at work he's getting insurance
Right.
because
got
he's
his
hurt.
workman's comp claim.
Right. Exactly. And so we're not saying he's committing, insurance fraud. We're just presenting the facts. And so today I kind of want to just present some facts about what we do. And then I think we're all come to the same maybe professional opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, what do we do as private investigators? And that is, we investigate people's background checks.
Right.
Right. And a lot of people don't realize that I need a private investigator to research someone's background. Well, there are instant database products online, and there are things you can go to, and you can ask a computer if this person's name and date of birth is in some database, and it can tell you yes or no. But if you really want a good background check, you need a PI.
Yeah.
You need a PI.
Yeah.
And as a property manager, I think everybody should be a PI, whether you're licensed or not, because that's what we're doing, right? We're deciphering data, and then we're making the best professional opinion or decision
Mm-hmm.
to move someone in. So today I want to know, Scotty, what do we know as PIs that maybe our clients don't know, that we think that everybody knows?
I think for me, one of the big things, and this was a word that I didn't really know before I started working. We worked 15 years together now, but I didn't really know this word. And one of that big word is recidivism. Recidivism, right? It's a lot of consonants, a lot of vowels,
Right.
a lot of syllables, but recidivism, which
Okay.
is really, if you boil down the definition, is the likelihood that someone's going to reoffend once they've been in prison.
And why is that important for us to know?
Yeah, I mean, as a landlord, right, or as a property owner, I'm putting someone. And we often talk about I'm hiring a business partner. Is what I'm really
Right.
doing. I'm putting someone into my asset to manage and care for my asset for a year to 5 years to 10 years. And as I do that, man, I sure want to make sure I put the right person in there. And so, looking backward at those, the history of somebody really does help me predict the future.
Absolutely. And, the data that we come in is really what we're doing is we're really looking for responsibility.
Right.
So we want to give you our professional opinion about whether someone is responsible enough.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I ask you, Scott, hey, are you responsible?
Absolutely, 100%.
Absolutely. Who's going to say, no, I'm not really responsible? Hey, will you rent to me? Everybody's going to tell us they're responsible, that they'll pay the rent, they'll take care of the property. We hear it all the time.
Yep.
But we actually have to have a third party or a background or someone say, hey, let me tell you if this person is really responsible or not. And so there's a couple things we do, right? We do credit checks. Now, I will tell you that I rented to 2 people this week that fell below my approved status. They were in my conditional status with their credit numbers.
So you've got a predetermined criteria that says this is my window.
Well, I hope everybody has that, and if you don't,
Right.
call us. We'll send
Yeah.
you a criteria. But in my criteria for this one particular property I'm thinking of right now is I'm set at 625. Then it
Okay.
drops down to conditional, and then it goes down to 550, and then below 550 is declined in the credit portion of it. Right. So this guy comes in about a 575. So he's in this conditional range. So it allows me to say, okay, I really haven't made a decision. It's not a black or white. I've got to go in and look. And so I go in and I look at the details of his credit report. And what was bringing him down was a couple $40 collection accounts. And I went and talked to him. I said, hey, listen, do you realize what these $40 collection accounts is doing to your score?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't owe that money. And I just, he wanted to prove a point and not pay $40. And yet it was hurting him,
Yeah.
hurting his credit.
His
So
principles were killing his credit.
so I had to educate him how
Yeah.
important, sometimes just pay the $40, even though you feel like you don't owe it, to save your credit.
Right.
It's life. So I felt like this applicant coming in just wasn't really educated on credit and how to manage his credit. I didn't see the repossessed car or the $20,000, non-payment of some credit card. I mean, these were $40 and $50 that were bringing down his credit score. So in the conditional range I was in and the data that I took in, I was able to make that professional opinion that they actually take care of their rent. I talked to their past landlord. I looked at their bank statements, which is so important.
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
made sure that they've paid rent this last 2 years. I did all of my due diligence, and my professional opinion was not that they were bad tenants. They just didn't understand how to take care of their credit. So I rented to them. So there's an option. I mean, here's kind of an example of us taking in this data and then making the best professional opinion in one. But credit's kind of easy, right? Credit kind of, it's easier. What I want to talk about today, and you brought up this recidivism rate, It's the criminal history. Like, whose past criminal, shows us that we might not want to rent to this person, or whose past criminal says, oh, that was a one time and done, and they learned their lesson and they moved on with life. Okay?
Right.
I am an open book. When I was 16 years old, I got caught shoplifting. Okay? That was my big criminal record, my big rap sheet, right? Luckily, I was 16. I don't know even what I was thinking. I go back over that constantly and go, what? I didn't plan on it. I didn't go in with a bad heart. For some reason, I had something in my hand for so long that I just felt like it was mine. It was like what is that when you're not developed until you're 25?
Right.
The
your
front
frontal
lobe of
lobe's
your
not
brain.
quite developed, right?
And I think of stupidity. Now, if I had a shoplifting charge at 51,
Different story.
Now there's a whole, once again, there's data coming our way that allows us to make a decision.
Right.
So recidivism rates, let's talk about federal recidivism rates. So the Bureau of Justice Statistics has come out and they did a 10-year study. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I think, they did, and this is really the first time they've done a 10-year study from prisoners released in 2008. And then they studied them from 2008 to 2018 to see what was happening. Okay, so what the kind of the statistics, and these statistics don't really change very much, but the idea right now is that there's about just under 7 million individuals in the United States who are either in prison or on parole.
And there's considered 350 million people in the United States.
Right, and there's about 100. Right. So I did the math.
2%?
Yeah, I did the math there. Between ages 18 and 65, there's 155 million Americans. So 7 million of them are in prison or on parole. So that's about just over 4%.
Yeah, 4 to 5% of our adult population is in prison.
Right, currently in prison or on parole. Okay. And which I think is an interesting number. And of that group, 95% of those people will be released from prison. Okay. In the next 10 years, or were released from prison. And out of that 95% that were released, 85% of them reoffended.
Wait. Say that again.
So out of the 95%, so 6.4 million of those 6.7 million people are released from prison. 5.4 million of them will reoffend within 10 years.
Now, but you don't go to prison for little misdemeanors and
no.
And, in fact, how many crimes do you have to really commit on average to get into prison?
Yeah, quite a few. I mean, as we look at the statistics here, what they have said is that of those that were arrested that were imprisoned in 2008, they had a median number of 9 prior arrests and 5 prior convictions. So these aren't your one-time shoplifting, jaywalking. These are guys who have been arrested 9 times, convicted more than half of those times.
Right. And
then they're in prison for, X number of years.
So these are our repeat offenders.
Right. Yeah. And we know that within, the statistics say 6 out of 10 of those that are in prison will reoffend within 3 years. And then that number drops down. But overall total, you're looking at 85% of that population will reoffend. So when you get an applicant that has a significant criminal history, not just, let's say they went to jail for a DUI, but they were in prison, 85% of the time that guy's going to reoffend. Will he reoffend while he is in your property?
And that's why
that's the big question.
Right?
Yeah, that's the big question that we as landlords have to be concerned about and really look at the numbers.
Or is he the 15% that makes it?
Right.
And what determines that, right? And you know what determines that for me? Time.
Yep.
Time, right?
Yeah.
If he's that 15% that goes the next 6 years and doesn't reoffend, then he has beaten some major statistics.
Absolutely.
Maybe this is a guy that I want to look at,
Yeah.
that I want to make sure that it goes into my criteria. Maybe this is someone who says, hey, I'm done being a repeat offender. I'm done, I'm ready to get, to be a positive in society. And maybe he might become your best business partner ever. But once again, we're going to take in all this data so we can make the best professional opinion. Everybody is an individual. I think Fair Housing wants us to do individualized assessments of everybody. They teach us to treat everybody the same, but when it comes to this criminal history, they really want us to individually assess, and I think we would want to individually assess, right? Not everybody who got out of prison 8 years ago is a yes or a no. You need more information.
Yep.
Right.
One of the interesting statistics that comes out of this too, I think, is that half of the people released from prison in 2008 were arrested for some type of a property crime. Okay. And then, so that was 47%. Another 47%. So a total of 94%. The other 47% were arrested for drug offenses.
Gotcha.
Both things that, as a landlord, are concerning.
Very concerning. Absolutely. Because I always look at the individuals here, this 85%, who are they hanging out with in their lives, right? The 15% probably got away from it.
Yeah.
Probably couldn't still sit in the middle of just criminal behavior and stay out of trouble, Or, facetiously I say, or maybe they're the 15% that never got caught again. I hear that all
Sure,
the time.
yeah.
I mean, you just never know.
Right.
We see statistics, but we really never know what's behind them a lot of the cases. But, I want to know who is going to be in my house. And that is not just my tenants. Who do my tenants hang out with? Who do they invite over? And then what activity are they doing within the walls of my home?
Mm-hmm.
Why does it matter if we're smoking crack cocaine in my living room? Why does that matter to you? I don't live there. Hey, just pay the rent. I don't care.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
I mean, that's the answer is pretty obvious. I'm hoping that's a rhetorical question. But yeah, I mean, the answer is pretty obvious. We know that, criminals in a neighborhood, they diminish the value.
They do.
That's just the reality.
They do. And property damage, holes in the wall, stolen, copper, stolen appliances to pay for the next fix. I mean, I'm making some assumptions here, but we've
Right.
seen this, right?
Mhm.
And we have to know this as property managers, that if we're going to deal with people in these statistics, we have to think about how can that affect us,
Yeah.
right? Now, once again, these are the worst of the worst we're talking about, okay? So, and this is a federal statistic. It's a big statistic, right?
Yep.
Okay, but statewide, Scotty, you tell me what state has the highest recidivism rate?
My guess would be probably just because of the size, like California or New York.
Okay, so
Those are my
we're gonna
guesses.
rank this per population,
Okay.
so it's percentage wise, so it
Okay.
doesn't matter how big the state is.
Okay.
But Delaware,
Oh, really?
yeah, Delaware has 64% recidivism rate within 3 years.
Wow.
Not your 85% that goes,
Right.
10 years. 3 years, 64%. Just to give you like the top 5 here: Delaware, Alaska,
Okay.
Arkansas, Colorado, and Rhode Island. Okay? Here's what's interesting is Colorado in the last 4 years went up 10% in their recidivism rate. And I've been watching Colorado really closely because they're one of the first states that went recreational marijuana.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And in the last 4 years, they go up 10% on the recidivism rates. Now, I haven't pulled enough data as a PI to
Right.
make a report to say, hey, but that is an interesting statistic. It's something that I would start to look at, and it's something that I want to know more about, to say, you would think if you legalized drugs, there would be less crimes or less
Right.
charges, less arrests,
Reoffenses, yeah.
and
Right.
less reoffenses,
Yeah.
and yet their recidivism rate has gone up. And so that's something that I'm going to be keeping an eye on over.
Yeah, look at those other states that have, over time, have started
Right.
to legalize and see if those same
Right.
numbers.
We're sitting about 30% here in Arizona. So we're
After 3 years.
after 3 years, and so we're just kind of sitting in the middle. Now, this is not federal jurisdictions. This is state crime, so this
Okay.
includes lower charges now.
Right.
We were talking about kind of the big boys at
Right.
first,
Yeah,
right?
you're
The one that go-
imprisoned.
Yeah.
Yep.
These are lower offenses in the states, and so we're not really talking apples to apples here in a way. When I brought you down to states, I'm bringing you down to a lower level
Yeah.
offender. Anyways, so that is interesting. Even on your low end offenses, your misdemeanors, felonies, on the state level, not on the federal level, you're still looking at 30% reoffending in the next
Mhm.
3 years. So how many years, Scott, do you think needs to go by before we can say they're not a repeat offender or they've learned their lesson? I mean, how many years do you feel comfortable with?
Statistically, I look at it and say that 10-year window is a pretty safe window.
Okay.
Okay. And on the federal government side, they say 7.
Yeah.
A lot of state governments say 7 years. So it really depends. But I mean, me personally, I'd probably look at that 10-year number and go, okay, you've beat the odds.
Right.
And I feel good about, putting you into one of my properties.
So the federal government pulled a study out of 1940 out of the University of Minnesota. In 1940, like we're
Yeah.
using a study in 1940.
82-year-old study.
Give me a break, right? But it gave them the statistics or the numbers that they needed to justify 7 years. And what that study said is if someone hasn't offended in the last 7 years, they are the same risk as somebody who's never offended.
Right.
They get really super close in their statistics. Now, this is 1940. I don't believe it. I think they picked the study and then because of the results,
Right.
you know, I don't buy it, but they hang their hat on this study and they say, okay, great. If you go 8 years, 9 years, 10 years like we would like to go, then you better have a study that justifies why you denied a criminal that hasn't offended, you know, in the last 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. You better have that statistic if we come after you. So they've kind of drawn the line for us and said, hey, we're 7 years. If you're 10 years, you better back that up. And it can't be just, because I just don't feel safe. You have to have some sort of study.
Yeah.
Maybe this 10-year study that just came out is one that you can grab and say, hey, no, look, this is, I mean, the study said 10 years, not 7 years.
Right.
The study showed 85% 10 years, not 7 years. So this is something that we really think that's important that we all know about. And so we can make the best decisions because housing is a big issue right now in this country. Affordable housing, it's amazing. I think that's going to be the next battle that we really have to fight as landlords is we're all going to be required to accept Section 8 housing at some point. I really believe that.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make me really happy. I'm not saying Section 8 is bad. I've got a lot of friends that make a lot of money off of Section 8. I'm not saying good or bad, but I personally don't want to have a yearly inspection, and I really don't want to deal with the government more than I have to. When I deal with the government, Scott, I get the CARES Act. I get no evictions. I get all this where they get to come in and be my partner and make decisions for me. I want nothing to do with them in my properties, right? So
Uninvited. I'm just going to share one quick story. So I don't even know if you know this one yet, but
okay.
Yesterday we had an application come in for a landlord.
Okay.
And the applicant's current address, Danville Correctional Facility.
Nice.
Okay. He gets out April 4th. The applicant gets out April 4th. He's been in prison since 2004 for second-degree murder.
Well, I think he's paid his rent.
And that's what he was acting like. He's like, "No, I'm current." I'm like, "Yeah, but I mean, this is a reality for some landlord out there. This is a reality that you're going to have an applicant possibly come in that's like this, and then what do you do?"
See, I think you make a great point there because you can't reoffend out in the world if you're not in the world.
Right.
So someone coming out of prison and saying, "Oh, look, it's been 10 years." Well, we're not talking about since the crime. We're talking about since you've been released.
Yeah.
Right? So this guy is on day 1, not on year
Right.
10.
Yeah.
Because he has to show that I can live in society, not reoffend, change my life around. And he could be a great guy and never offend again, but we don't know that. And that's why I say time is the factor.
Mhm.
Now, I'm trying not to make too many judgments. I'm just trying to work off of like just the statistics, right? I'm just trying to bring a professional opinion with the statistics, not tell you personally how I feel.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody is good. Everybody has a good side to them. I'm looking at this data, managing my risk, right? Managing my risk. I'm not down on criminal history. I think people can, be good citizens of society. I think people can make mistakes. I think they can change. I certainly at 16 years old learned a huge lesson from that. And now I'm like overly sensitive. If I see a receipt I didn't get charged something for, I will go back and pay for it. I mean, it's almost like, it made me really think about stealing again, right? And I've been like overly sensitive to I will never ever be accused or anything of that ever again. That was such a stupid part of my life.
Yeah.
So there are those things, but it's also so hard for these guys to get out of prison and have landlords say no, have employers say no. We wonder 85% go back in 10 years. I mean, is that partly our fault? That's certainly a faction of the United States is making that argument.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I researched as part of getting ready for today was employment of guys who get released from prison, and within the first 4 years, 33% of those people could not find employment within 4 years.
33%.
A third of them could not find employment. So, again, the system does kind of work against them sometimes on rehabilitating or being back out in public again.
Well, my heart goes out to those companies who have the certain positions that they can put people in and give them a chance.
Yeah.
There are certain places where there aren't other people or other risks, that you can take those chances. For those landlords, we need landlords to house these people. We need landlords to help this part of society. So I am certainly not here saying do or don't. Do if you can do it and the risk is minimal for you, they might be your best tenants you've ever had, and you might help them not commit a crime again. But once again, multifamily, your own health and safety, there's just a lot of information you need to take in to make that professional opinion. And that's all it is it's just an opinion. It's just our best guess on how the future is going to go. And that's really all we can do with this data. So
it's tough.
It's a tough situation. It really is. Yeah. But the fact is a lot of us are in here to make money. And once again, we have always talked about in other podcasts, what's your strategy? Mm-hmm. I was speaking in Toledo, Ohio. And afterwards, I had a guy come up and he says, hey, I appreciate everything you're saying, but I kind of just have a different way of doing things. I go and interview families that are struggling, maybe just got out of prison or whatever, and I have dinner with them, and I take about a month with them, and then I pick them and say, listen, if you're willing to change your life and you're willing to get on, then I'm willing to help you. And I said, you know what? We need more people like you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, here I'm talking about the bottom line and making money and the dollar, and he's sitting there thinking, that's not even why I'm in this business. So we need those type of people. Those type of people are saints. He told me about 60% of the people he works with make it and 40% let him down. But he promised that I'm not, just because 40% let me down, I'm not going to quit doing what I do. And I thought this guy was amazing.
Yeah, kudos to that.
I wish
awesome.
I wish I had his contact information. I'd come have him on a podcast because it was it's nice to see a heart like that.
Yeah,
definitely. So. Anyways, it's important that you know recidivism rates. It's important you know that the past equals the future because we want to get information that's going to help us make the best professional opinion. You are now a property investigator.
PI,
like you're now a PI, a property investigator, and we appreciate you joining us today. Until next time, continue to rent perfect.